Hello and welcome to the Global Business Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Philpott. Oh yeah, hello everyone. Happy to be back again. My name's Mark and I'm the host of the show. I'm really happy to be bringing you another fantastic guest today, but before we get into that, if you haven't been here before, this is a show where I interview people across the world about their business and how they're navigating things through these COVID-19 times. We're all in different stages of restrictions and lockdowns and processes and government support and lack of government support. So I started this podcast in the hope that we can share information that can inspire each other, motivate each other and support each other through these difficult times. If you haven't checked out the previous episodes of the show, just head over to the website, theglobalbusinesspodcast.com. It's long, but it's easy to remember, and you'll find all the previous episodes that I have done there. Now, today's guest, he's an entrepreneur and he's very focused on ethical businesses. So we're going to go over and have a chat to him right now. Let's find out where he is in the world and what he's up to. So it's a very warm welcome to the Global Business Podcast show today to Andreas Valencia. Andreas, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mark, very much for having me. It's an honor to be talking to you. And well, thank you.
Well, why don't we start off by telling all the listeners who are listening in over 90 countries around the world today whereabouts you are.
All right. Well, I'm in Colombia, South America. I am from Bogota, but right now I am in Medellin.
Wow, fantastic. What a great city it is. And it's a bit of a hub for startup entrepreneurs and digital nomads, isn't it?
That's true. It's becoming a great hub. I think the lifestyle here, the city itself is very green, and it's also one of the most innovative cities in the country. So I think because of the lifestyle that's quite relaxed and very green, it's attracting a lot of international people. It was funny because I was living in Bali before, and most of the people that I got to talk to, they were either saying they were coming back from Medellin or going to Medellin. So yeah, it's now a hub.
So what makes it so special there for you? Why did you choose to go there particularly?
Well, as I said, I'm Colombian. I'm from Bogota. Bogota is a very chaotic city. It has a lot of traffic. It's very congested, fast-paced. The weather is a little bit colder than here. Although my family still lives in Bogota, I decided to just change a little bit and experience Medellin for a while and change the scene. I think this is a smaller city, easier to commute, greener. So that's why I changed.
So a lot of lifestyle benefits for you.
For sure, yes.
Yeah. So what was life like growing up in Bogota? Was it easy or was it difficult?
Pretty easy. Bogota is, it's my city. I love it. I grew up there, just normal going to school. Nothing really hard. It's just because it's the biggest city in Colombia. There's a lot of traffic and I don't know. It's a different, fast-paced city, and I left Bogota when I got my MBA, and since then I changed to a slower-paced environment, and that's why I changed. But it's a normal city. It's amazing. It has art. It has music, lots of things to do, great food and restaurants. It's great, and to grow up, you have your family there. I think that's what makes it amazing when your family is with you.
Yeah, of course. Is it an easy place to do business in Bogota, or is it a place that's friendly to foreign businesses coming in and doing business in Colombia?
I think it is. Actually, Colombia is welcoming a lot of international investors and businesses. We are a very open country for foreign people. I think we tend to perceive international people as having something as attractive, and then that's also make them for us Colombians like an interesting partner to deal with. I think people are sometimes even more open to deal with international people than with locals. In terms of regulations, to be honest, I think it's easy. Opening a business in Colombia is easy. The thing is, sometimes the market here changes, and I'm comparing this with the United States, for instance, where the market is way more developed and there's way more consumption. But I think it's easy, and you can come, and when you have money in a different exchange rate like dollars or Australian dollars, I think the conversion makes it for you to like have a better investment, right? So $1 is triple the value here in Colombia, and that's also another advantage for anyone who wants to do business here.
I think in terms of a lot of people listening to the show today probably haven't had a lot of experience doing business in South America. Why would you say, or what would you say Colombia has as advantages over some of the other South American countries as far as doing business goes?
Wow, that's a great question. One of the things is we are on the north side of the South American continent, so we are very close to the United States, and we're middle way to like Argentina and other places. So I guess if you have to travel and you have a business that's in all Latin America, then it's easier to travel. So that's one thing. And the other is, if you're living here and you get to see the people, also people are very friendly, and that also makes a different experience. Like Colombia, when I traveled around South America, everybody refers to Colombia as like the nicest people. So I think that also makes it interesting to come here and do business. But also it's a developing economy. It's growing. I think in terms of the economies around here, we might be behind Brazil and Chile, which are more developed. I mean, Argentina had its crisis before. Peru it's still, I think, maybe comparable, but Colombia is probably the third most developed, and we have a lot of technology here, great developing people. So it's a great place to come and start. I guess there's a lot of resources here, and it's cheaper than Brazil and probably Chile too. Actually, cheaper than Chile too. Now that I was there recently, so that's like 3 good points to consider.
Yeah, fantastic. You should get a job in the government to promote their business activities. So what are the main industries in Colombia? What are the main business industries?
Well, I think right now from the GDP, one important is oil services. A lot of oil companies from around the world come to Colombia, and they do their exploitation here, and that's part of the GDP. Also financial services, banks are very strong here. In terms of industry, fashion was one of the big ones. I've been working in fashion for a long time, but let's say Levi's, for instance, and Ralph Lauren, they were producing their garments here at some point. And but the first two are probably the biggest ones: services, and financial services and financial institutions, and oil services for the oil industry.
Okay, cool. Now you mentioned about doing your MBA. What were your dreams and goals back then when you were starting off in the business world and looking at venturing out and doing something?
Wow. Well, I finished my university here in Colombia, and I worked a little bit in investment banking and then in marketing research. And while I was working there, I always wanted to start my own business, and I did so in 2008. We opened here a children clothing brand and apparel brand with my mother. And because of different reasons, I mean, the whole process of learning or failing and learning, we ran out of cash, and I ended up selling the business and taking that money to go and get my MBA, where the idea was to focus on entrepreneurship and keep going and having new ideas and keep working for myself. What I really dreamed about before starting a business was like, I want to be able to work on my ideas and execute them and making happen. And that's really that was the motivation. And I can resume this with this little story. I remember when we started this fashion brand, I went to one of the big malls in Bogota, and there was one kid wearing our clothes. And I remember the sensation, like the amazing feeling of knowing that person was wearing something I designed and we developed as a company. That was my main motivation and to keep the path. And that's my MBA was at Babson, which is #1 school for entrepreneurship around the world. And that's where I went.
Fantastic story. Now let's go back to those days. I'd like to know, and I'm sure the listeners would like to know, where did you get your entrepreneur spirit from? Did it come from your parents?
I think so. My dad is an entrepreneur. He owns his own business. My mom also, although she worked all her life, she had the idea to start this, and she's been very resourceful and always like doing and making her things happen. So I think on that side, and honestly, at the end, I don't know. I think I was very creative. Always had a lot of ideas, and I was sitting in the first job just thinking about, it would be so nice if I could work in this. And when I was working in marketing research, I even thought of like making these chambers where you could do focus groups and all of those quality researches. And then at some point I said like, well, I just want to do something like this and start my own thing. But I think, yeah, from my dad and being sitting down and just thinking I want to do my own thing and the energy that it gave me.
Beautiful. So going back to the fashion business you started with your mother, what were a couple of lessons that came out of that journey that you can sit down now today and say, okay, well, these are great lessons that I learned from that business experience?
Oh, wow. Many, Mark. I mean, I could talk here a whole day about all the lessons, but I think the main lesson that I learned from that experience was that when you start a business, and especially in fashion where there's a lot of inventory and a lot of investment, you have to be very careful and probably very innovative to be flexible so that you can control your overhead and so you don't have all your money tied up into inventory. The reason why the business got cash strapped is because we opened 2 different stores. The sales were not coming in. Most of our cash was already strapped into the inventory. And then at some point we basically had no more oxygen to go, so we decided to sell it. That particular time was 2008. I don't know, you remember there was the crisis there. It also hit us in Colombia a little bit. So when consumption stopped, we had that problem that people were not buying. Our money was strapped there and we couldn't move it. So that was a big learning that led me to think about the business, the last business I was working on. That was one of the things I learned and I changed for that business. So that was one. And the other one is working with my mother, for instance. It was a whole experience. You have to learn how to like talk to your mom, and like it's a personal relation, but it's also a business relationship. So how do you deal with those day to day, and like those there are many. Like I did everything from scratch. I designed the whole stores, so the layouts and everything, and there was so many things that you learn, not only about designing and putting it all together, but also like all the failures. As again I said, we had our cash strapped in the inventory, and I think that was our biggest mistake. But then that's a big learning for later that I had in my head before I started the last business I started.
Yeah, great. I guess that many people listening today would kind of think that you're very brave starting a business with your mother, but I'm sure there's lots of benefits that go along with that as well. Was it very hard to do business? Was it, I guess when a lot of people start a business, they've got an idea, they've got a dream, they get all emotional about it, and they think, okay, we're going to take on the world and it's going to be relatively easy. But did you find it really difficult to actually start a business and be involved in a business?
Well, in this case, which it was the first one, the truth is I was still working, and my mom was working before she got pregnant, and after her pregnancy, she said, I don't want to go back to work again. I think I want to start something with clothing. I want to make clothes for babies. I always wanted to do this. So she had the idea initially, and then she met another friend, and they came together and they said, we want to start this business. And I said, okay, well, I can help here. And then basically they started it and they went for it. I kept working for a couple of months, actually almost a year. And then I quit my job to focus on this business. So in the first one, they started and I just joined. I have to say. So it made my things easier to make
Okay,
decision. But just taking the decision to quit my job and decided that I wanted to work entirely in this business, that was one another story by itself. It was I had a conversation with a coworker. She was very worried because she recently had a baby. Her husband just was studying. He came back to university because he really wanted to become a psychologist. So her main worry was, if I get fired on this new promotion that I got, because she had been recently promoted, I'm gonna be in a very difficult situation. So I'm very scared. Like, I don't know, my baby is here now. We have so many expenses a month. And at that point, I sat down. I said, well, I think I was 24 at that time. I said, okay, I'm 24, 25. I don't have any debt. I don't have any big expenses. This is just right at time, and the business is going there now. It's time for me to take over and go work full time on it, and not just my mom. So that's how it came about.
Yeah, great story. So after your MBA, what did you do then?
So while I was in the MBA, so again, we had the children clothing brand, and I sold it, and I went to the US. But before going to the US, I started working with a friend. I had a period of time before the MBA started. I started another business, took it to the MBA, and that ended up when I was we closed that business when I was in the MBA, because my business partner decided to start another job. And after that, during the MBA, we started another business with another student also from the MBA. It was a Latin American food business. We wanted to bring Latin American foods to the United States. The idea was to support those suppliers who were sustainable, and to bring those products to the US. We recognized that at the point, people were changing their preferences, not from Asian foods to Latin foods. And it started to take off. We designed this subscription box in which we got a lot of products from Latin America. And in 1 month, we got 50 subscribers. The idea was to get to 100, up until the point that, you have visas in the US to be able to stay. And my visa expired. I couldn't stay in the country anymore. And my business partner was in the same situation. He said to me, look, we're in a point where we can go back to our countries, or even go back and come back to the United States in a bit. But we can also explore Asia and see if we can take a sabbatical after we finish our MBA, and then we go see what's going on in Asia, and then come back and go work in the business, because at this point we cannot keep going. I mean, we don't have a visa. And that's what we did. We went to Bali. The idea was to take a sabbatical, explore Asia, surf a little bit, and well, I ended up staying for 3 years.
I was going to ask why Bali, but when you mentioned the word surfing, I understand now.
Yes, it was a whole long sell process from my friend, my ex-business partner. He said, look, there's a lot of digital nomads coming in. There's a lot of entrepreneurs going there. There's an amazing surf scene there. So I don't know, just let's go. It's cheap. You can find amazing houses. And to be honest, Mark, I didn't even research anything. Where I'm pretty sure you might have heard about the 4-hour work week. We went to a trade show and he put that book. He said, listen to this, and if it changes something, you can take it off if you don't want, but just try to listen to it. And after I finished the book, I said, okay, let's go. I didn't even know where I was going. I just said, okay, let's go. I'm gonna go surf. This is the early retirement. Let's see it like that, and let's do it.
Yeah, fantastic. So 3 years in Bali, what kept you there?
Well, the waves are amazing. The first hand, the lifestyle is amazing. But the other thing is, when I came to Bali, I started surfing, but then I couldn't stay still. And then my friend suggested, well, how about you start doing tropical shirts? And they're kind of trendy here, and I don't know, you can do something about it. And I started running around my bike in the island looking for suppliers, just to see what I could find. And what happened is, the first day I came out, to look for the suppliers, I found these people who were able to print fabric by hand in very low quantities, and I just fell in love with the process. When I had my children fashion brand before, one of the main complaints of all the parents was, okay, I went to a party this weekend, I took my kid, I just bought a new attire, a new outfit, and 4 or 5 kids were wearing the same things. Like, why everybody wears the same? Why can't anyone be different? And that stuck in my head for a long time. And when I saw I could print fabrics in small quantities, I decided to like put that together and create something out of it. And basically I ended up starting a new business, and which is Stiga. The idea was to do limited edition runs of fashion and partnered with artists from around the world to create limited edition mini collections of wearable art. That was the whole concept. That's when it was born.
Fantastic. So what happened there with that business?
Well, that business kept working until, well, it's actually working. Right at these tough times in the COVID, let's say I'm in a little break, and I'll tell you why. But the business kept working. It took me a year to like finally develop the first products. I came to Colombia also to see if I could find the same sustainable basis that I found in Bali, and see if I could produce here. Again, as I told you, we had the children clothing here, so we had the expertise, and my mom kept working on the same industry, making dresses for kids. So my idea was to work with my mom and bring the business to Colombia. The thing is, I couldn't find here the fabrics or the process, so I went back to Bali and started again. So I think 2018 September, I managed to close the first big partnership with Luca Beaufort. He was a French artist. That was the first collection with a big artist that we launched. And then from then it started to grow. And 2019, I entered into 2 stores in Bali. Then I had an event where we launched the fourth collection. And then I came to Colombia again with the idea to try to see if I could produce here. I always had the idea to produce here in Colombia. This is my country. I wanted to bring the production here. And I started, while I was here, started selling in 2 different stores, and then COVID happened. So when COVID happened, the 2 stores where I was in closed completely. The stores in Bali also closed. And my first business that I had, I sold it. What I did is I bought 2 different little retail stores with that money. So the money that keeps me alive at this point is from the first business. And because of the COVID, of course, all the people that are right now renting those retail spaces asked to reduce the rent. So my budget got a little bit strapped, and I decided to like put things on hold a little bit. To see while everything has a better, clearer outcome or future, foreseeable future. I don't know.
Yeah, great. I want to go back to what you mentioned about getting your first partner on board or collaborator in the French person to help you with the business. How a lot of people be interested. How did that come about? How did you entice somebody to get on board with you and support your dream?
All right. Well, this French artist, he was not a partner, but he was an artist that with whom we made a collab, and it was a very interesting story because he was a relatively big artist. He had made collabs with Vans, North Face, and big brands. And honestly, I had been following him. He had been posting about different like surf contests and other stuff, and he posted a picture in Bali, Instagram story in Bali. And I just reached out to him like, hey, that looks like Bali. And he replied to me like, yeah, it's because I am in Bali. And I just reached out to him and say, hey, Lucas, I am a big fan of your work. I am doing this brand. This is the first, this is one of the shirts I already made, because by that point, it was the second collaboration. So this is the shirt I already made. I want you to see it. If you like it, I would love to collab with you. So he said, okay, come see me. I'm going to be painting at this hotel, and come see me and see what it is. And then I showed him the shirt. He loved it. He was, dude, consider this done. We're gonna do this collab, and that's how things got going. It was just telling him what I was doing, why I was doing it, and bring him the product, which was a shirt, and he absolutely loved it. And that's how things went on.
Fantastic. So who's the demographic target market for the shirts?
All right. I am targeting more than demographic. I like to think about psychographic. I like to think about people who like to feel unique, people who are art lovers. When I first started, of course I did like a buyer persona, and I was envisioning this 25 to 35 male who was like an entrepreneur and but like art and like unique things that are hard to find, and he travels and has his business. That's kind of like the vision of the persona that I had. One of the things, for instance, one of my main learnings at the very beginning, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be for surfers. And then when I came to analyze, I saw, well, not all surfers actually spend a little bit more money on their clothing. Surfers, sometimes they don't like to spend that much. There are a certain group of older surfers that do. So I moved it into like this kind of entrepreneur who travels, who already is independent and likes art.
Fantastic. And how did that go in terms of getting to that market? What are some of the marketing strategies you used to get into that market?
Well, for the brand, what I did initially was social media immediately. That's what I started creating things. It was talking about art and talking about what we're doing, sharing about the artist, taking some pictures done in Bali, which is an amazing place for a fashion brand to create content. So it was the main thing. Then also I had a newsletter, and in what I tried to do when the very first time I started was try to do something like Supreme. I don't know if you're familiar with the brand. Yeah. These guys throw a collection and it sells. Goes sold out in like half an hour. So the point of talking with the artist and collaborating with the artist was also to tap into their audience. These guys, whenever they post and they share, hey, I'm doing this collab with this brand, they sell a certain number of shirts. So that helped me a lot to get those sales going. And with the email marketing campaign that was going on to generate expectation, that's how like the sales were coming in.
So let's talk about social media, because a lot of people out there, and I've been speaking to a couple of business owners this week alone who have said to me, oh, social media, I just don't get it. I don't understand. I don't know how to manage it. So what was your, I guess, background and history of social media, and what platforms have you found to be the most successful for your business?
Well, in terms of background, one of the first things that worked for us for the Latin American food business that we had before was Instagram. At that point, Instagram was very small. And I don't know if you remember the bots that people use to grow the audience. When we started, it actually worked a lot. So the whole strategy with Instagram in this case was to find certain ambassadors, and there's no better ambassador than the artist itself, right? So Instagram, it's complicated because nowadays it's very crowded. There's a lot of brands, there's a lot of people. I think to Instagram, it's going to happen the same that happened to Facebook pages at the beginning when they started. I don't know if you remember when Facebook pages started, every brand had their own Facebook page, and then the market got saturated and then they stopped working. So now I think the same is going to happen with Instagram. The reason why I have it is because it's mostly an image thing. When a client customer comes to see your brand, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to check your Instagram. So having the content there and having a good quality content like creates that brand image that you want to convey. So that's why I have it. Now, it's also important to try to track and measure. I'm going to be honest, what really worked for me was the post in collaboration with the artists. Those guys, they have audiences of 20,000, 60,000. The last one I was talking to was 100,000. So when they post, they immediately get sales when we launch the collection. So that was really the strategy. I was not trying to put content. I mean, I had a team that was putting content just to keep the account alive, but really that's it. And that's in social media what I'm doing. I think nowadays brands particularly, we kind of have to become some sort of a content kitchen where we are creating content all the time to see what sticks, what not. But that's not easy to make, and it's a little bit expensive. So you have to decide whether that makes sense or not. What really I like more is email marketing and having your database there. So I don't know, having your emails with active campaign, and then automating your campaigns and seeing who replies and who's there, and communicating similar content, then that audience is yours. The email database is yours, so it's your own people. So I think that's works a little better. That's the way I see it. And nowadays, again, since everything is so crowded in Instagram and Facebook, you kind of have to like pay for ads, so you can create the people to go visit your website, see the brand image that you're conveying, and if they're interested, then they go and see your website. So it's getting more expensive because of the amount of people that's starting to play the game.
So for people that are, not as far advanced with social media as perhaps what you are, is it a landscape that you need to be across all of the time and watching the trends, what's happening? You've talked about the evolution of Facebook and Instagram. What's going to be the next most important, or what is the next important platform to be on right now for a brand?
TikTok is the next.
Right.
Yeah, for people who like to know about social media trends and like these kind of social networks, Gary Vaynerchuk, he's been talking about, it was called Musical.ly before. He's been talking about since, I don't know, like 2 years ago, and he said it was the next thing that was going to happen. And what's happening with TikTok is the same that was happening with Instagram 3-4 years ago. Like, people started to see Instagram as like, well, really, do I have to be posting pictures? This is so lame. And then suddenly you're in the network and you're posting every time, and then you're seeing brands, and I think that's what's going to happen with TikTok. It began like like not children, but like more of a younger crowd creating their own content, but now brands are starting to get in there. So I think that's where the attention is going to go. It's kind of how I see it.
Okay, interesting. So let's go back to just before COVID-19 hit the world. Whereabouts were you when COVID-19 came along?
I was here in Medellin, Colombia. I had just finished one event in December with one of the artists here. So what we were trying to work on that point was to create a new collection with them and with another brand that works with the artist. And the idea was to present that collection in the fashion trade show here in Colombia. And then this all happened. We were already getting like contacts in the mayor's office and like support from different agencies. I was already starting to like get everybody together to create like a new collaboration for a project that was going to be called Medellin Edition. It was a shared base in Medellin, where what we wanted to do was to make an invitation to artists from the city to create something for our products, and then launch those products in the trade show and create a big art show at the end as a launch. So that's what we were working on at the point.
Okay, so then COVID-19 came along, and a couple of things I want to ask you around that. The first one is, from a personal level, what was your first kind of emotions and feelings about COVID-19 coming along and hitting the world?
That's a tough one. At the very beginning, of course, everybody's confused, I guess, and I was very confused, and I couldn't help to think like, well, is this real? What's going on here? Because another thing is, like, we are close still with our friends from Bali and friends from, that are in the United States and different parts of the world. And what I kept hearing from people from Bali was, well, nobody's taking care here. Nothing is happening. And nobody's going to hospitals. So at the beginning, I was like, well, confused. And then when you start seeing, well, everything is starting to close, and then I started to get worried about, okay, well, my main income at this point, besides my business, is also my real estate. And, well, people are having to close. So what's going to happen? And then the stores that I have my clothes where they're selling right now, they're going to start closing. So what's going to happen? So then you start thinking, okay, well, I don't know, how is this going to unfold, And so that's when the confusion gets into a real thing. And then for me, there's a lot of suspicion in terms of what's going on. And there's a lot of story. I'm not a particular believer or strong believer in conspiracy theories, but I think there's a lot of interest behind like pharmaceuticals. I've been in Boston seeing the pharmaceutical business and how everything is it's moved by investment, and you have to generate returns, and like so I don't know. I particularly at this point I'm confused. I think it's real. There's a virus for sure, but there's so much interest in, I don't know, in generating fear and having people scared. But yeah, that was the initial reaction, and right now, well, I don't know. It's still blurry.
So what happened from the business side then? So when COVID came and you started having the sense of, let's say, nervousness about what was going to happen with the business side, did you implement any strategies or anything within the business, say, right, we're going to put everything on hold and just see what happens, or are we going to diversify into another area? We're going to look at online activities. What did you decide to do?
All right, well, so I was working at that point also on not only the event that I told you before. I was also working on new products that I was gonna start this working with my mother and developing. Mm-hmm. The thing is, my budget just came down, and I basically had no budget to fund those ads and keeping the campaigns going on. Sales at that point stopped, and the stores closed completely. One of the things I said before is the main learning point from my first business was to have low inventory and to have low overhead. And thankfully, my inventory was very low. That's why I make limited editions, so that I could have a very limited stock. So I have very few pieces. And for me, going on and create a new strategy to sell online when all my suppliers are closed, the people who sell the fabric are closed, I make shirts. That's the main product that I have, but I was working on other products because the fabric that I use for the shirt is not available in Colombia. So with that landscape, I said, okay, well, this is a time where I better just take a break. I had a conversation with my dad, and he gave me the most wise advice I've heard. And he said, picture when you're surfing, about what you've told me. When you're surfing and you have a big wipeout, the worst thing you can do is to start freaking out because you're going to run out of oxygen. So at this point, what you can do is just sit down, hold your breath, count to 10, to 20, until whatever it is. And there's a point where we're going to go up and see things clearer. And so that's basically what happened. And I just decided, okay, I don't have a lot of inventory at this point. My budget is reduced. I rather give it a wait and see what happens next.
Very, very good. Good advice from your father.
It was amazing. And when he said, he mentioned about swimming and being in a current, but I just pictured myself under a wave in Bali and struggling, and it just made all sense in the world.
Well, I'd like to use another surfing analogy that I use quite often in business as well, in reference to what you're talking about, and that is that we all know that waves, or maybe we don't all know this, but many people know that waves come in sets, and in between sets you're left sitting there waiting for the next sets to start. So I guess that is pretty similar to what you're doing now. You're waiting for the next set of waves to come along and for this thing to clear off so you can get back into what you're doing.
Well, that's true, and I'm even gonna add up to your comment right now, because I believe entrepreneurship is like surfing, indeed. And not only because of the sets, because of every wave, and every wave that you see, it's an opportunity, and you have to decide if you're gonna go or not, and you have to be careful when the waves are coming, and whether you take it or not. If you wanna paddle, you have to paddle. If you're gonna take it, you have to commit, and it's gonna take you to a certain point, far or close, depending on the wave. And at whatever point you stop, you have to go back and paddle back again and start it all over again. And
yeah, I love that. I love using the analogy of surfing for business because it's so true. And I've always said too, when you're on the wave, because let's face it, we have those periods in our life where everything's going right, everything's going well. For me, I use the analogy that I'm riding the wave. I'm on the wave, everything's going fantastic, but always in the back of my mind, I understand that wave's going to come to an end, and I'm going to have to, as you say, paddle out and start another wave. So I like that. I think we might have to start a surfing analogy business book.
and what you said is like, you have to be grateful that you're actually on the wave, because the other thing I've always thought is there's people who don't even jump in the water.
Yeah.
So that's the other part of the analogy.
Yeah, it is. And also, to further elaborate on that, is that people don't enjoy when they're riding the wave. Like, they don't get to celebrate the milestones. And in business, you can celebrate lots of little milestones. You don't have to have a massive sale or orders or whatever. There's a lot of things that you do every day in a business where you can actually sit down and go, wow, that was really great, we achieved that together, or we did that alone, or whatever. And I think there needs to be more of that going on as well.
Absolutely. I think actually it's not like you have to feel happy with those little waves or those little moments, because otherwise entrepreneurship is like a emotional roller coaster, and you have to keep praising those little happy moments all the time to keep in shape.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get the crystal ball out now, and I'm going to ask you, what does your business look like in 2 or 3 years from now? What are your goals that let's say that COVID's going to go away in the next few months and you're going to be able to get back to what you wanted to do? Where do you see the business in 2 years from now?
All right, well, Mark, that's a very important question, because again, as you mentioned before, number one, as in the set of the waves is coming, there was another opportunity that presented. I'm right now working simultaneously on this, but Tiga, my business, it's on hold. And one of the things that I expect in 2 years is to be participating in a couple of trade shows in the United States, getting in the American market. The reason for that is if we sell in the United States, again, the price that we receive is triple the money that we could get here, and our production costs are lower. And that's what I was also working on this year. Particularly, I had 2 trade shows that I wanted to attend. Actually, one is happening now. It's Pool. So for Tiga, that's the outlook for the future. I think the future is not going to change much. I mean, of course, there's a lot of e-commerce and online activity going on, and it increased a lot, but people still need connecting. And what we were trying to sell with Tiga was the experience of art. And every time we launched a collection, we would do an art exhibition and bring people together. And I think people are going to still want to connect with each other regardless. I mean, maybe you're going to buy online, but you still want to go to an art exhibition. So those events that were happening every time I launch a collection, and participating in those trade shows and expanding to new stores was where I wanted to go. And the reason I was trying to get into those stores is also because it's better to scale. I know the online and e-commerce business is amazing, but if you have a channel, a distribution channel that is yours, that can help you scale it even more, even better. So that's where it was going. And then what happened while this time is that the same day I was talking to my dad about surfing, we started talking about the need that people would have now that the economy is going down, and how banks are not lending the money, or if they are doing it, it's very expensive. And so we had the idea, we started discussing about, like, how about, I don't know, you could lend money yourself and see if there's a way to do this. And we started exploring an opportunity in the lending business and see how we could fight what happens. In the United States, it's called as the payday loans. Here, it's a bit complicated because those loans are mostly given by drug lords, and in very high interest rate conditions. And the problem is not with the interest rate, because people actually can pay them, but when they don't pay, the way they come to get the money back, it's with violence and torture. So how we could create something that uses technology so we can approve faster and get into the space. Another problem, and the reason why people goes to those kind of loans, is because people in Colombia don't trust banks. They don't want to go to a bank, or the process is too long. It takes 3 or 4 weeks to get a loan. I need the money now. So, and maybe they're not gonna give me the money because I don't have credit history. So how can you change that? And there's a lot of companies and a lot of startups now supporting the process. And so what we're evaluating now is trying to combine the business that my dad has, which is related, with how we can start lending money in a responsible way, basically at an interest rate that of course it's gonna give us a return, but is lower than what people have to be facing when there's payday.
That's fantastic. So you're looking at diversifying into different things and keeping the entrepreneur spirit alive.
Well, as you said, if we're sitting in the lineup and you see a set coming, there's a wave. You have to like sit down and see if you're gonna go and make it. At this point, we're paddling, we're measuring, and let's see if we ride the wave or we just let it go.
Yeah, brilliant. So my last question today is around your journey as an entrepreneur. What are a few things that you can share with the audience today about things that you've learnt in terms of being an entrepreneur from the time that you started the business with your mum right through now to what you're experiencing through COVID-19?
All right. Well, the first thing I would say is definitely that whatever you do, whatever you know, it's all right. I think most of the times or sometimes, I don't know, this was my experience, I was afraid that what I was doing was not enough, was not good enough, or I wasn't right. And the truth is, you're always just less wrong than you were before and less wrong than the other person. Like nobody knows what's right. So knowing that, just take your chances and go ahead and do your things. And I would have done way more things before and jumped into like these lending businesses seems like a very risky thing, but like I already have the confidence. I think maybe because I built it before, but also because I know what I know, that I can make it happen. So be confident in your knowledge and just jump in. You may not know everything, you may make mistakes, but that's the way you learn. And the second one is, from those mistakes, learn to like see those failures and those difficulties as learning opportunities, and don't hit your head or get down if something goes wrong. There's an opportunity to learn, and it's a process. This is not a sprint, it's a marathon. It takes time and takes years. I think realizing that it's important. When we started, or we have an idea, we want this to become the next big thing in 1-2 years, and I don't think that happens, regardless of what all the news say with all the VC companies, which is hyped just in terms of the money they receive, but not necessarily in the money they bring or the impact the ultimate longevity those companies would have if they didn't have those money pouring into. So those are things that I learned. Again, what I said also before, if you come with a business idea that has a lot of, I don't know, it's about making products or things like that, see how you can make it a flexible business model where you can scale back and forth as needed, depending on your overhead or your inventory, whatever. See how you can manage that so it's not a burden. You can navigate these times. As I said, in my case, I decided, okay, I can take a break. It's okay. I don't have any money. Like I'm not burning money at this point. Of course, the momentum I had has been lost, but when I resume, the momentum is going to be there, and I just have to create it again. And
wonderful insights. Anything else to finish up with, Andres?
The last one, I think it's more on my personal take on business. I invite people to think about sustainability and how, whenever you do whatever you do, be mindful and have impact, whether it's social impact, environmental impact, or any other impact. It's positive. Try to impact your community or less waste, whatever it is. Businesses are the ones who magnify the effect. The consumers can consume less to reduce the waste, but until businesses produce less and make a conscious choice to produce less, better quality goods, the impact is not there. So try to think that whenever you start a business also. That's just for people to keep in mind, like this is one world and we have to take care of it. So as business people, we have to be careful with that and try to keep that responsibility.
Terrific pieces of advice to end up with today. If you're listening to the show today, I'm going to be putting the contact details to get in touch with Andreas. If you want to, maybe you want to reach out and collaborate with him. You've got some ideas on how to help him with his business around the world somewhere, and we'll put you in touch with Andreas so you can do that. Andreas, thank you very much for joining me on the Global Business Podcast show today. It's been wonderful talking to you and listening to all of your great ideas from Colombia.
Thank you, Mark, very much for having me. Actually, I have a code now that you're mentioning. If there's people who are interested in the shirts that we're making, I have a code for you guys as TGBP, as the Global Business Podcast, TGBP 20, and you get $20 off of your purchase. There's worldwide shipping. Just go in the website, check, and reach out.
Brilliant. I'll put all those details in the show notes today so people listening can get that. Thank you very much for offering that to my listeners, and let's see whether we can flood you full of orders as well, Andres.
All right, hopefully so. And thank you, Mark, very much for having me. I hope this conversation has some insights, and I don't know, it's been fun to talk about business with you.
Absolutely. Thank you again.
All right, thank you very much.
There we go. My guest today was Andres Valencia, talking to me from beautiful Medellin in Colombia, and giving us a lot of insight on his journey and what he's doing today. So as I said, check out the show notes and see how you can connect with Andres. And also for all the listeners today, he's offering a $20 discount on some fashion. So that's fantastic. I'll put all the details in the show notes. If you're looking for more episodes from the Global Podcast Show, Business Podcast Show, then head on over to our website, theglobalbusinesspodcast.com. And you'll find all of the previous episodes there when I'm talking to business owners and business leaders across the world about how they're managing their way through COVID-19. And the story of diversification continues. Very interesting indeed. If business is not your thing and you're looking for something else a little bit more different, then I have a travel podcast and also an inspirational podcast where I just talk to people about topical events around the world as they unfold today. So you can check those two out. The travel podcast is globaltravelchannel.com, and the other one is Humaneity Inspires, which is HUMANEITY.com, and you'll find the episodes there that I've done with people all across the world. So there we go, plenty for you to listen to in the podcast genre from my end. I hope you enjoyed listening to this particular podcast. I enjoyed bringing it to you, and I look forward to being back with you all again very soon. If you like our content, don't forget to tell someone about it. Get them listening as well. Could be a friend, a family member, or even a work colleague. Get them onto the Global Business Podcast Show. Well, that's it, folks. Time for me to go. Thanks again for listening in, and I'll be back again really soon. My name's Mark Philpott. Until then, stay safe, stay well, and stay busy.